Hi, welcome to Accessibilities with Dr. Dee and Marquis. Marquis, up. I'm Dr. Dee, and this is my service dog and co-host, Marquis. Marquis, up. Marquis, high five. Give me a high five. High five. That a boy. Say hi. That a boy. And who's our special guest today? It's Dr. Jen Stratton. Thank you. Okay, you can lay down. Go ahead, lay down. I'm doing a show to highlight people with disabilities. I promote disability identity as a culture of pride and strength, not pity and shame. I see disability as just another way of moving through the world, just different modes of functioning. There's a saying, if you see it, you can be it. But there is a huge shortage of people with disabilities visible on the screen. Many people with disabilities are not encouraged to flourish to their full potential. My hope is that a viewer watching this show may say, I have that disability, and if they can do that, maybe I can do that too. Everybody has a story. So today, my special guest is Dr. Jen Stratton. She is a professor of education, a blogger, and an author of a beautiful book called Nick Springer on the Move. So, hi Jen, welcome to the show.
Hi Dr. D, and hi Marquis.
This is your beautiful book. Do you want me to say a little bit about it first?
Sure.
Okay, so Nick Springer on the Move, this is from Jen's blog, is an adaptive sports story written to redefine ability. It was also written to fill a chasm in children's literature with regard to the representation of disabled people in picture book biographies. Jen believes that all children should see themselves represented in books and that representation matters. She and her team also believe that picture books should challenge children's frame of reference to help them redefine a more inclusive world. They know that children are curious, and they encourage people to engage them in critical conversations about disability, sport, and social justice, which is what we're always trying to do here on this show too. So their hope is that this book makes it to every classroom and library shelf. So thanks for being here, Jen. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you wrote this book?
Sure. Thank you again for having me and giving me the opportunity to share Nick's story. So Nick Springer on the Move, it came out of kind of an unexpected situation, we'll say. My daughter at the time, who's now 13, was actually in kindergarten, and she wanted to share a poster of Nick Springer, who was her cousin. And it was a poster of him in his Team USA uniform, because he plays wheelchair rugby for Team USA. And it was a picture of him in his sport wheelchair, and he was balancing a ball on his nub, he called it. And it was a fantastic photo, one that we have shared many times. And Caitlin wanted to share it, and she wanted to bring it into her kindergarten classroom for show and tell. The teacher, though, when I had emailed the photo and many articles and videos, said that Caitlin couldn't share the poster. It would scare the children. We knew that was inaccurate.
Because he's in a wheelchair, and
because he was not, I think because of the amputee, being a quad amputee. So
quad amputee, so that means he had an unfortunate incident, both hands and both legs below the knees?
Yes, thank you. I should have said that. So Nick, at the age of 14, had contracted meningococcal meningitis. And in order to save his life, the doctors had to amputate partially his limbs. So they amputated his legs above his knees and his arms below the elbows.
And
so
how old was he?
He was 14. Yeah. So, and then he had to redefine his life.
Right, so that was an amazing story in of itself. How did he react when he found out, when he woke up? And
well, that's exactly it. When he woke up, he learned that he had to rethink how he was going to use his new body in the world, and he overcame many obstacles. And that's what this story is about. And that was what we had hoped the kindergarten teacher was going to allow Caitlin to share. But what I started realizing was from my research that books like this didn't exist. There weren't books about amputees. There was very little about wheelchair sports at the time. So that's when myself and Nick teamed up. I started interviewing him and writing this story. So Nick...
So you can hold that up.
Yeah,
and show
sure.
that to the camera again.
Sure. So in the story, like you said, Nick didn't wake up. It was actually after several months of a coma.
This camera?
Here, Nick is in bed after having been amputated, and then here he is thinking about, how am I going to get through my days now? How am I going to imagine this new world for myself?
And he thought that up pretty quickly on his own before his parents even had time to digest what happened.
He had a lot of support. He had the support of his family. He had the support of the occupational therapist, the physical therapist. And through that, at first, he actually did use prosthesis. So he did use prosthetics. However, as in the story, we talk about the prosthetic limbs due to the skin grafts and prosthetics at that time. They aren't as advanced as they are now. They just weren't the right match for him. So he actually ended up not using them. But that was really a defining moment, because that was when he decided the wheelchair actually gave him more access to the world. And wheelchair sports got him back to what he wanted to do, which was be an athlete.
Right. So he's finding a different mode of functioning so he can do the same thing in the world that all other boys his age are doing.
Right. Well, he had originally been a hockey player, so he just moved to sled hockey. And it was when he was playing sled hockey that a teammate said, you should really try wheelchair rugby. And wheelchair rugby is one of the toughest wheelchair sports. It's when people who are in wheelchairs, they play on a wooden floor, much like a basketball court, so similar, basketball court, and they pass the ball. And they can pass it, it can bounce, they can grab it, and you have to get over the goal line. However, to get over there, you actually have to avoid all the other players who are trying to smash you. And so
everybody's in a wheelchair.
Everybody's in a wheelchair, and they are literally trying to smash each other.
They crash into each other.
They crash into each other, they knock each other over, and Nick became a world-class athlete in knocking people over. He loved the sport and really became such an incredible athlete at a level where he represented our country around the world, and actually in the 2008 Paralympic Games in Beijing, China, where he led the team to a gold.
That is amazing, a gold. That was just absolutely amazing for him.
Yeah, it was quite the accomplishment for any athlete.
Wow. So that's great. So I know the book has a lot of illustrations. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about the illustrator?
I would love to tell you about the illustrator. So the illustrator is Christopher Custer. He is a mouth and foot painting artist. What do I mean by that is that due to paralysis, Chris, who suffered a spinal cord injury, is paralyzed from the chest down. And he actually creates all of his art with his mouth. And he is employed by Mouth and Foot Painting Artists, which is a worldwide organization where all the artists, due to either paralysis or amputation, either paint with their mouths or their feet. And so Chris is a very accomplished artist who created all of the images in the book using his mouth.
Amazing.
It is.
And you have a picture of Chris in the book?
I do. Here's Chris painting.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
He just did a phenomenal job.
He did,
That's
yeah.
so great.
And when you think about many of the illustrations and all the details that are in them, I'll just show you one. Here you are.
He has all the movement.
Yes.
All the movement.
Every page has movement. That was one of the challenges, because I think we really wanted to reframe how children saw movement. And we also wanted to shift how they thought about ability. So there's an action-packed. This is a sports story, so it should have action. It's an action-packed sports story with lots of movement.
Wow, that's great. That is so awesome. And I just have to say that I've read a lot of your writing and the work that you do on your blog, which is
JenStratton.com.
JenStratton.com, where you can see the book and you can read a lot of other stories. Jen writes about the abilities of other people with disabilities, and she gets right to the spirit of the individual.
Thanks.
And shows how they move through the world to accomplish what they want to accomplish. It's just really great.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of amazing athletes who share their sports story. So the blog really focuses on the sports story of athletes and not focusing on the disability and the barriers in society, but it focuses on the athlete and what they are able to accomplish in their sport.
Right, and that's so important. It's barriers in society, because there are other ways to do just about everything.
Exactly.
It's just that the mainstream, the majority of people do it one way, but that doesn't mean that's the only way to do it, and doesn't mean that's right and another way is wrong.
Exactly.
So I know you take your book into schools. You do talks and things like that. You want to talk about what it's like when you bring a book into a school?
Sure. I've been invited into some classrooms, and I feel very fortunate for that, because this book, the audience was supposed to be children. And when I go in, I have students think about the narrative that's currently in children's books around, for example, amputees. So I show them like a picture. They all know who Captain Hook is, right? A really famous amputee. But when we think about the characteristics of Captain Hook, he's a villain, he steals, he uses a weapon. Those are not the characteristics that I know of most amputees. Most amputees.
No, they're very negative.
Exactly. So what I try to share with children is the new narrative.
Negative and scary.
Yes, exactly. And so what I'm trying to show them is the true narrative of amputees are that they have a lot to offer. They're hardworking, talented individuals who happen to do things differently. And so for Nick, they get to see him as an athlete who learns to persist and achieve his goals. So I really challenge the students to look differently. And then what's amazing is not only do I share the story, but then when they realize how Chris created all the illustrations, it reframes everything. One little girl said, I'm realizing that there's so much ability in disability.
Right. Yeah. And that's just amazing, because that's what we want people to learn.
Exactly. It's just done, and she even stated, it's just done differently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was commenting earlier, one of your blogs, you had asked the students, or one of the students asked a question about, well, how does Nick catch the ball with no hands?
Right.
And another one of the students answered the question and said he can do it with the elbows.
Yeah.
So you had a discussion about how else can you catch a ball, how can you throw a ball?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it was. It was they start thinking about things differently and realizing there's so many different ways to do things.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So do you have like other materials that you bring to schools, or a
Well,
format?
I've been able to team up with Move United, which is a national organization, that national adaptive sports organization. And they recently just published what's called the Inclusive Play Book, which is a free resource for teachers or coaches or parents. And it features young athletes playing multiple adaptive sports. And so it's a wonderful piece because it is full of puzzles and games, but it also is full of facts and information that help students see other children at their age playing sports, just in an adaptive manner.
That's so important because it destigmatizes disability, and it shows how much abilities other people have. But even more importantly, there are many children who have disabilities, and they can see a role model, which is so important if they see another child who looks like them. And also for family and friends of children with disabilities who can look and say, yeah, that's like my friend, and see that it's just another part of human life.
Exactly. My youngest is actually what's called a congenital amputee. So it means congenital meaning born with. So he was born without his left hand. And I've gone in and visited his classroom, read Nick's book, shared the Inclusive Play book from Move United, and it was really empowering for him, but it really changed how his peers also saw him, right?
He becomes an equal member of their little
Exactly.
society.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not to be pitied or think poor, poor kid who doesn't have a hand. No, he's not. He just does things a little differently.
Yes.
That is great. What a great way to bring up your son, and what a great inspiration to have this for him
Thank you.
going forward.
Yeah, Nick was a great role model for him.
Yeah. So do you want to say anything more about Nick? What's happened? I know you were planning on going into schools and talking about this book with Nick, but something happened.
Yeah, unfortunately, in April, spring, Nick suddenly passed away. And so it's been challenging to carry on the work without him, but he lived by the saying, be strong and push hard. So that is what I continue to do. I will just be strong, push hard, and continue sharing his sports story. And that's what we, as a team, my children, others, we're just pushing forward and sharing his story, because it's it really can change how people see the world and see themselves.
So we really encourage people to look up jenstratton.com, and please ask your schools to put the book in the library, ask your town to put it in your library. It's just a phenomenal story. So I want to thank you so much, Jen. It's been so much fun having you here. Time goes by so fast.
Thank you.
But now it's time for my inspirational notable quotables, and I have two today. The first one is, there is no greater disability in society than the inability to see a person as more. And that's by Robert M. Hensel. And the second one is, by being yourself, you put something wonderful in the world that was not there before. And that's Edwin Elliot. So that's our show for today. I want to thank you for watching and remind you that we can be seen on WCTV, on Comcast Channel 99, Verizon Channel 39, Sundays at 6, as well as on their video on demand. We are also closed captioned on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and type in Access Abilities as all one word, and then click on the icon with the Statue of Liberty seated in a wheelchair, you'll get you'll see all of our episodes. And we're also on Facebook at facebook.com/accessabilities2020. Also, if you have any questions or comments or want to remark on Jen, and if you have any other disability issues you'd like to know more about, you can email me at accessabilities2020@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, we'd love to hear from you at the same email address. So stay positive, and we will see you next time. Marquis, up. Okay, Marquis, here's the end of the show. Say bye. Say bye. Say bye. Well, good boy, good boy.